from Nottingham. It's quite a cold day, but at least it's not raining. It's about 1 degree Celsius here, and we're repairing a lot of walling. We've already started repairing this piece of walling on the bottom, and then we've got to do the top. You can see that it's leaning forward. There are times when they've used a joint running up, which that's a weak point in the wall where they've not crossed it. Should have crossed it each time, and that creates a problem. They haven't got a batter on it, it's not leaning backwards, so there's quite a lot wrong. There's a lot of soil between it as well, and when soil gets wet and it freezes, it pushes the wall apart, so that's another problem. So we're going to kind of take that down, rebuild it with 2 sides of kind of dry stone, fill the middle with partings, which would be more of a hardcore stone base, not soil, and then that'll have a coping on the top of it. You can see here, looking at this, if you have a look at this, this is the sort of thing that happens when people have vertical joints running up. You've just got no strength, and then the weight of the wall and the water, it just absolutely pushes it to pieces, really. So there's a bit of work to do here. Take that down, put some good foundation stones in the bottom, build up, make sure that we get a bond on it, put a few throughs into the soil, because it is a retainer. If we can do a double wall, be even better, with through stones through, batter it, lean it backwards, and then hopefully that should strengthen that up quite a bit. So there we go, that's kind of what we're on with today. So on this piece, it was quite difficult. We had to dig down to find a firm bearing subsoil. You can see we've left in the back of the footing, the original footing, but it was sloping the wrong way on the front end, so it means that the wall had got a heavy lean the wrong way. Instead of into the bank, it was leaning outwards. So what we've done, dug down, I'm going to put a stone in that front area, which will then be higher than the back one, so when we put the next one on, it'll slope backwards. We're just where this wall was leaning out really badly, so what I've done is change the base so that the front stone in the foundation is this side as opposed to that side, is slightly higher, so that we can try and correct it to get a slope into the bank. That's really important, that is. So we've set sort of, it would be about a 1 in 20 fall going into the wall, okay, which will help. We're going to use a lot of through stones, so where we can, because you've got this bank, obviously we want plenty of drainage at the back to take the water, the gravitational water away, and you can actually create a drain to run through the wall as well. You know, that's another option, which is good. So plenty of hardcore in the back, but using throughs right into the bank where you possibly can. That'll give it the strength. Obviously, biggest stone in the bottom, so biggest stone that you can find in the bottom, and then you're progressively getting to the smaller stuff. What I'm doing here, I've set a batter, so I've set my batter on here, so basically that has got a fall on that leaning into the bank. Okay, so you set your batter up, make sure that you've got your, you know, when you're looking at the level, just turn that around the right way, when you're looking at the level, that it's sort of, the bubble goes to this point, and I've got, you know, my 1 in 20 kind of going in. The other thing is I've set this line up pretty much level, and we'll try and get to that level. The sooner I get to this level, if I can work it through and get to a level, that'll make it easy then for my next course, so I can course it. So if you can possibly course it, it just makes it a little bit easier, especially when you're using regular stone. If you're using random, it doesn't matter. On here you'll see on the lower one here, so one of the things you have to do when you're laying your blocks in the bottom is, if you've got any movement, you have to pin them. So if you've got a few sort of little bits of slithers, just looking around, so bits like this, or even thinner bits than that, they're invaluable, because if you've got a rocker, you can pin it. I'll just show you that now. Just get a couple of bits. So I might need to break one, snap that, and this comes in handy not just for pinning, but so if we just have a look, that one's pretty firm, that's good. That's all looking pretty good actually. Got those in pretty firm. That's not bad. A little bit of movement on that. See that little bit of movement with my foot? And I've gone long ways. I prefer to put them in ways, but I'm using the length of that one, to be honest. So if you possibly can, pin it on the back. So with this one, you're better off. I'm just going to take those out, and we'll lean it there, and we'll just pin it on the back. If I can get one in there, just to pin that. And once you've pinned it, that takes out the hook. Get that in a bit better. Quite there. Could do with a slightly thinner piece actually is what I'd need really to do a good job of pinning that. So sometimes a bit of slate is really good, but of course when you want it, it's never there. That little piece there is going to pin that stone. I know it might not look much, but that's quite a useful one to pin it. So I'm going to put my foot on this side just to create the angle, pop that in, and that now is pretty much there. You've got a very slight movement, so I'll just make sure it's pinned as much as it can be, and that's taken that out now. So we've got a nice solid stone just by pinning. So pinning's good, through stones are good. Try and get to a level, obviously set up a batter each side, work to your line. We'll have a look at some trimming and cutting a little bit later. But we're just trying to get that leaning into the bank so it'll help to take the force of the soil, and then plenty of stone at the back which will form a bit of a stone drain which will take the water through the wall, so it's not going to hang around. What you don't want is lots of soil in the wall, because that will absorb water, freeze, and it expands by about 10%. Water does when it unfreezes, and it pushes it apart. Okay, so what I've done here is got this foundation back on track, if you like, using throughs that are going through. See, one there, trying to keep them going regularly to get a bit of strength into the wall. When you pack it with your heartings, just make sure it's packed nice and tight. All that friction will help bind the wall together. And now I'm back level. What I'm looking at is making sure that I bridge my gaps. So I've cut this down, so that'll just sit and it's bridging that nicely. It's a little bit thin. I'll have to watch it. On the next one I'll probably have something a bit bigger. And then all I do then is kind of bridging along here, because I've got it all. The advantage of getting it all nice and level means you can just run a course through. But here I've run two going that way, which isn't the best. It's better if they go in. So what I'm going to do now is try and strengthen up the wall again by having one that goes across 3 or 4. So what I've done here is I'm going to put that across there, and that's going to bridge that little chunk there and bind that together. It is a little bit, not much of a lap there, to be honest, which isn't ideal. I could have cut it back a bit more, but we'll worry about that. It's got a good through stone underneath it. There's a little bit of rocking, so it just needs a tiny pin. A little bit, could do it on the front or the back, but it is leaning that way. So actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to pin it on the front just to take out that rock. So that's all pinned, and that's all nice sitting there. And that really, when you get a big one, if you've got one, that really kind of strengthens it up. I can fill that with some of my offcuts. If I've got a piece to go in there, that'd be good. And it's just coming up now. We couldn't knock the wall in any further because of this. We could have broken it out, reconcreted, but the owner didn't want us to go to that trouble to actually do a massive job. So we're trying to work with what we've got and do a kind of repair job, intermediate job. But at least we've got this nice and strong, so this will be solid all the way around. So we've just about got the copings on. Now what I'm going to do is come back later when the weather is above 1 degree Celsius. Well, it's pretty much been 0 all day actually, and you needed above 3 degrees to mortar the copings on. You could leave them dry, and obviously if I was doing them dry, I'd set them up absolutely level with little shims of stone, but we're going to mortar them on so that they'll be nice and strong on the top, and in case anybody walks on them or anything like that. See the top one, the copings are on, and then we just got to tie in this end. So we'll tooth out the left hand side and curve that in, and then that will be that done. But really it's pressure washer time and a clear up. So I hope you've learned a few tips on building a retaining wall. Obviously if you can get drainage at the back and get a decent batter on, and make sure you bridge all your gaps, make sure you haven't got any sort of what we call letterboxes or bits that are kind of cantilevered. They all need to be bound together. The friction helps hold the stones together, so that's always good if you can get the friction on the stones. So your binding from about 6 different stones is good. So see you next time.